reality is, as already touched on, the narrative has shifted, right? We're in the digital era. We're in the midst of COVID. That means pressure on everybody, is through the roof. That means economic and political impacts are much more direct, and people who are, the closer to, the ground, if you will, are the ones who are going to experience it first. So our youth, people who are experiencing, part-time or even education, all of these are massive shifts. And that's why, especially, I know Grace is trying to stay quiet, but, as we work to plan this, with Got Your Back and Infinitus partnering and Grace, spearheading a bunch of some of the questions and the themes for this, we felt it was important to really dig into, this. Why is it important for our youth and young professionals to have an understanding of civics and to be actively engaged in the election process, whether they're voting age or not, but especially municipal? And as we're setting this theme, for the first question, Nicole, if I could send it your way.
Thank you. Certainly, I would love to answer that question. I think it's important for youth and young professionals to be involved so that they're aware and engaged in their community where they live. The impact of COVID-19 on HRM has determined how we are interacting, how we engaging, and how we socialize now. And I think it's creating creative ways to be more engaged. And that I understand young people know how to do that. And they do it efficiently and they do it well. And so, engaging them and investing in them and helping them understand what this looks like, not just that elections about land tax and property tax and all that stuff. It's far more vast than that. That it's recreation and education and things that affect them directly. So that's what I would say.
Thank you, Mr. Lindell Smith.
Thank you. So few points have been hit on already, but what I'll speak on is the practicality of being involved. So, if you think about the effects that we as municipal government have on your everyday life, so how you get around the city, either through walking or transportation, are we clearing the sidewalks out properly? Are we making sure the buses are arriving on time? Are your parks clean? Are the garbage cans empty? Do you have a park to go to in your community? Where community centers are located? If your water is gonna be clean or not. When you flush the toilet, we have to make sure that there's a place where that goes and gets treated. When you call 911, we need to make sure that fire will show up. We need to make sure police will show up. All of these things, plus many, many more aspects, are affected by decisions that we make. Now, there are nuances of how those things are handled and how we get to the decisions for them. But as a municipal government, we are the ones administering how those policies, programs, and initiatives work. And if you're not engaged to how that's working, we are pretty much determining how your life will function. And I think the more and more people are paying attention to that, the better things will be. So young people are saying, every day after school, when I have to transfer to get from Citadel High to Dartmouth, the way that my transfer is running road, or the bus is always late and I miss my transfer. And if they're not telling their counselor or if they're not calling 311 and giving that feedback, we don't know. And I think the more and more that young people are providing feedback, so it's one thing to want to be involved in the process, but also being engaged enough where you feel comfortable to complain. That's how we get better. Is we can make a decision for you, but the best way to do it is to hear how that decision could affect you and make decisions based on that. So, for example, me and Wade share Goddard Street. I'm at a cafe right now on Goddard Street, and there was a bus lane that was installed. There's a whole story. I won't go too far on it, but most recently we amended or changed how that operated because after doing reviews and collecting data and speaking to businesses and looking at how buses operated, we realized that, we don't actually need to close this down in the morning and let's give the businesses back their morning parking. And now businesses are really happy that we did that. That only happened because of making sure that people were involved through the whole process. And as young people, that's how decisions are made and changed and continue to evolve. Is if you are not telling us that our environment needs action now, we're not going to act. But if you do tell us that, now we're in a climate crisis, and our council has endorsed that and declared a climate crisis. So, that is not because we work in a silo. It's because of voices like you told us you need to do better. So for me, that's why I think it's so important that there are people who want to be engaged, and don't be afraid to reach out and ask those questions. And even if you think it might be silly, it's fine, because you can only imagine the things that we hear on a daily basis. So no question is silly. Every inquiry is important. So for me, keep doing the engagement.